Hey, it's a whole new season of Courageous Wordsmith. Last season, I was releasing my book, and this season, I am really seeing the connections, how everything is connected, and how we are connected to each other, and how sometimes seeds we planted way back when don't come to fruition until much later. Or maybe they come to fruition seasonally, they're perennial favorites. And every time they come back around, you see something new. So, little story. When I was in high school, a senior in high school, I starred in the play Our Town. Now, when people think of starring in Our Town by Thornton Wilder, what they mean is they played Emily or George. And that's not what I mean. What I mean is I wanted to play Emily, the sweet ingenue, but my English teacher cast me as the stage manager. And the stage manager is typically a male role, and that role talks for over an hour if you just have all the dialogue from beginning to end and you cut out all the other parts. And she gave me that part. And it's not really acting. It's more a truth teller. So here's how Our Town works. There is a small town and it has 3 acts. And the first act is daily life. And the second act is marriage. And the third act is death. Okay? And recently, I went to see Our Town, a production at a neighboring community high school, and I ran into an old friend that I met in drama that year in high school. We were in the play together. He played Mr. Webb, and I played the stage manager. And at intermission, he and I gravitated to each other, and we looked at each other and said, "Oh my goodness, this play." And that's when I decided that he and I needed to record a podcast together with our old English teacher. And this is that episode. I'm Amy Hallberg, author, editor, and writing mentor. And these are conversations with real-life creatives on how we find and embody our voices. Because if you want to be a real-life creative, it helps to know what that looks like for you. Welcome to Courageous Wordsmith. So I am here with Carol Ottoson. She is my former English teacher and the director of Our Town, and Cory Busse, who was in the cast with me. And here we are. How many years later? That was the spring of
Oh, can we not
1988.
do that?
Okay, but I went looking this morning for the script and I couldn't find it, but I found this. It's a
Oh,
picture of
I
all of
remember that
us.
one.
Yeah, look how long, we look so
Mhm.
young.
Um,
I hate to say it, but you were so
Yeah.
young. Yeah.
We were really
in that
young.
picture, I think, if you got your dates right, I had just cut my hair and gotten rid of the perm that I
That's
that I
right.
had to begin that year.
Yes, your hair looks really straight
Yeah,
here.
thank goodness. So there's no photographic evidence of curly mop top Our Town editor web.
Well, okay, so can we talk about that? So Carol, she was our English teacher and also our director. So she knew us on multiple levels. And Carol, you cast us according to how you wanted to cast us, as opposed to how we wanted to be cast.
That always happened when I cast any show. I had been asked more than once if I precast my shows. I said no. I would
Mhm.
only cast from auditions. I would sometimes have an idea of who would be good. And then in the auditions, like sometimes that would work out 90% of the time. Nope, nope, nope. And so yes, that's exactly what happened. And then I had to, if you recall, and I know Cory especially recalls, I had to make a cast change. And I did not move Cory to the position he wanted to be in, but I moved him. That would be George. I'll just say it
Right?
out loud. It would be George. I kept him in the position of Mr. Webb because that's actually a meatier part. So I kept him into the part that I knew he could handle much better than putting the other person into Mr. Webb and moving Cory into George just because Cory wanted to be George and he was about a sophomore or junior in high
Because
school, and that's how you feel
yeah,
all the time.
exactly.
So
Well, and everybody wants to be Emily and George. And I wanted to be
Yeah.
Emily. I was like, put me in Emily. And you were like, no, you get to be the stage manager, which to this point in my entire life, that is the only time that I have had the absolute leading role in a play. And I didn't want it because I wanted to play the sweet little ingenue. And so here's Cory and me, both of us wanting sort of the innocent child role as opposed to the role that both of us really were suited to play.
exactly. And I kind of knew that. I always said I have a couple skills. My pizza was good, but my other skill was casting. I really did know how to cast.
It's funny, Amy,
So
because Carol and I had
Mm.
happy hour sometime in the summer on a sunny patio on a Sunday afternoon. And Carol, you said to me, Cory, you were so mad at me. And about this whole thing, about this whole George versus Editor Webb thing. And it's funny because as we were sitting there, I had this experience when you said, Cory, you were so mad at me. I'm 51 years old. I don't think I have thought about how mad I was at you since I was 15, 16.
that mad at me.
Right, since that moment. And I know we talked a little about this before we started. It is no small coincidence that my daughter's high school just performed Our Town. That's where Amy and I started talking about this because we were sitting in the audience at the same night at the first intermission, because there are two, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
Is that really necessary, Thornton Wilder? Thanks so much. I walked up to Amy and I said, "Can you believe this? Oh my God, But we talked about it, and the phenomenon you talk about, Amy, that all girls want to be Emily and all boys want to be George, is absolutely true, and it played out in my house this fall because my daughter was not Emily; she was Mrs. Soames, and I wondered in that moment, having that reflection, Carol saying, "Cory, you were so mad at me." I wonder if in her middle age, my daughter will have that similar experience and have someone remind her, you were so angry that you weren't Emily, because we all want to be, right? And so this is a coincidence. I don't know if either of you have read it. Tom Lake.
I just told Amy about it. Isn't that a great
I
book?
literally just finished, I just held up Tom Lake by Ann Patchett because this
Right.
is radio, not television. Um, Last night, and had picked it up at a book sale with my daughter for $1, and we fought over it, who got to keep it on their shelf, and I ended up reading it first. And I got about a third of the way into it, and I took it to her and I said, "You have to read this
Yeah, absolutely.
because you have to read this because it is all
Is
about,
everyone?
yeah,
Yes.
because it's all about wanting to be Emily and getting to be Emily and then not getting to be Emily and then never getting to be Emily again."
Right. So you and I, as you said, we met up at intermission. My husband happened to want to go see that show. And so I'm sitting there, and you've said this to me a couple times, Cory. You've reached out and been like, yeah, so Our Town, Amy, had your voice
Yeah,
in my head. And I think that this moment, what's interesting about this play to me is that it's a moment in time. And that's what the whole play is set up. There's the daily life, then there's the marriage, then there's the death. And so you and I meeting there was almost like this little time capsule. We're like, all the time in the world had passed and none of the time had passed. Kind of like you and I were in the funeral cemetery section at the end, looking back at the ghosts of our younger self. Enough time has passed that I don't remember all those lines. I mean, the stage manager part is more than an hour. If you just time that out, it's more than an hour speaking, all told. And I would have been very fiercely protective of it at some point. But now it was just like, oh, yeah, it was like visiting an old friend without a lot of attachment to it. And I think, you too, Cory, you're like, yeah, actually, editor of the paper, that's a great part. So looking at our former selves, having compassion with him and her, but at the same time, here we are out here. It's very meta. It's like the play in the play in the
right.
play in the play.
Well,
Well,
I think now that I am probably the age, I'm probably older than Editor Webb. I forget his first. Charles? Is it Charles Webb?
they just called him Editor
Editor
Webb.
Webb.
I don't know if they ever gave him, and Doc Gibbs. I don't remember that they gave too many first
I don't know that he is
names.
a first name. But I am probably older than Editor Webb would have been in this play. But it was so fascinating because by the time you reach Act 3 and he is who he is, I can identify with that character way better than I could identify with George. I kind of wanted to
Lucas.
smack George, but I do have to say, of the high school production that was just the young man who played Editor Webb, I was like, one, identifying with this young man because I was like, I remember those lines. I remember saying that stuff. But boy, he was good. And I was like, I don't know that I was that good.
You were good. Yes, you were good. I was going to say that my introduction to this play was when I was in ninth grade. My brother Bob, who was a senior, played the stage manager. And so I saw it as a ninth grader. And then I taught it. We taught it in the 11th grade classes. I taught it for 24 years. I've directed it both with you guys and again several years later. Again, I had a female stage manager again, and I like that. You often don't see that. But I keep thinking of, I was the young girl. I was the bride. I was the parent of the bride. I faced death in my family. And so that's why the play, just like you guys said, you're bringing back yourselves. It becomes kind of meta because that the play just keeps, our lives are that play. And this is why I love the play so much. And it's back on Broadway now.
Yeah.
Right now, as we speak, they've just revived it yet again. Only I heard, Cory, I'm not sure if this is true. I thought I read they made it into 90 minutes, no intermissions, and I don't know how you do that.
Well, you certainly don't do it with the permission of the estate of Thornton Wilder because they are quite persnickety.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Carol, you said before that you're good at two things, pizza and casting, or at least two things, pizza and casting.
Many more than two. Let me just say,
Many more than two.
But continue.
And I've been eagerly awaiting this conversation all week. And one of the things, particularly as I was reading Tom Lake, that I was thinking was, how the hell do you cast high schoolers in these roles that are so far? I mean, like I say, I can identify with Editor Webb better today than I ever could when I was 15 years old. But you've talked about, and Amy started with, you put us in these roles that you thought we would be right for, despite what we thought. and we've both seen you do it, both in plays in which you cast us, and since then. I mean, I've seen dozens of your shows beyond the ones I was ever in. How do you take material like Our Town and take a recently permed 15-year-old boy and throw him into a role and know that he is going to do any damn good? How does that work?
A lot of faith. Faith in the process. I always felt that I never believed in people acting. I believed in you becoming. And so my goal with you as a director was to help you become your characters. And because of that, I listened to you guys. Maybe I've had people accuse me of not directing, and I went, "Oh, I'm directing. Don't you worry. I'll let you go as far as you can, and then I'll go, nope, nope, nope." That was how I directed. But what I would see is people started to inhabit your roles, you would become that character, even at 15 or 16 or 17. And I've seen that time and time and time again. I've had people blow me away on stage on more than one occasion. You guys did. You guys were great. You really, when I started, Cory, you were a freshman my second year there. Yeah. My first year there was a struggle because it was other people's kids with my cast. When you guys came in as ninth graders, when your class came in as ninth graders, I was like, okay, and I'm going to say it, okay, these are my kids now. And you had other directors besides me, I know that. But so then there's a trust level too. And I think that the biggest thing is that we all were in it together and we all loved it so much. I mean, there was so much love there and there's so much love of theater. And I never directed a show I didn't love because I had to direct something that I loved. And there are a couple of shows I've retired because I couldn't stand to see another cast do it. I did do Our Town again, but that was because that was my last show at the old school. I thought that would be a good one to end the old school with. And that's why I chose that particular show for that place. So.
I have two questions. One, how did it not live up to the one we did? I'm kidding.
I will not say I love those children too.
But you love us more.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I'm curious to know how How are those experiences different? Because same school, same building, same stage, different people separated by 15 years? 10?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fall of 2003 it was. Um, every cast is different and everybody has different ways of doing it. It was probably pretty similar. But I did Skin of Our Teeth too twice, by the way, Corey. I did that a second time too, just because I love Thornton Wilder too much to just do him once.
So, Cory, you're hitting on something, which is that I'm hearing you say that this play changed your life, and I'd like to actually share how it changed mine. And then I'd like to ask you the same question. So that was my senior year. As I said, I had never starred in any plays at all. I tried out. I'd been trying out in our town forever. We have this active local theater. I could never get cast, or I'd get cast in like this little part that said little thing. And that I had gone off to Germany, really had a growth experience, thought more of myself when I came back to our hometown. And I think that the people, when I came back, were kind of like, who do you think you are? And put me in my place in a really humiliating way. I was a cheerleader and I was hazed very, very publicly in the football stadium, and I quit cheerleading. And it was, it wasn't until afterwards that I realized like that was an experience that would take me years to get over. But I really had very little faith in myself. And from there, I went on to be cast as the lead in this incredible play. And so it's like, Carol, I don't know if you understood that, but that was a moment in time when I could have just crawled off into a hole and not been seen forever. And instead, or I'd like to play this little sweet role. And you were like, nope. And you put me in this role. And there I am standing in the center of stage, and everybody in the whole school is watching me, and they're listening, and they are not hazing me. They are listening. And it would still take a long, long time before I could really put that into a better context. But being in that play, in that role, and you saying, no, Amy, do that role, it absolutely changed my life. And meeting Cory, Cory didn't know me from anyone, but I think this play has a power to work on people, and it kind of undermines some of the, even though you cast us in roles, it kind of undermines the way that we understand ourselves, if that makes sense.
Well, number one, I had no idea where you were. I just knew you were the right person for the part. And it actually is kind of considered a brave directing thing to cast a female in the role of the stage manager, because it is supposed to be a male. And it's like, number one, I had more women than I had men anyhow, but
Right.
number two, you were the best person for the part. So I'm really happy to hear, you never know sometimes how things affect people when you're doing it at the time. You really don't. But
You don't.
one of the powers of this play that transcends time, and that's part of when I taught it too. It's like it celebrates the ordinary.
Mhm.
The whole theme is celebrating the ordinary. And when Emily goes back, the things she says goodbye to are new iron dresses and sleeping and waking up and all of the ordinary. And as we talked about this with my book club group, some of your former teachers, as a matter of fact, some
Mhm.
of them have had surgery, so all of a sudden you become, if you have any kind of illness coming, well, I used to take it for granted that I could take a shower, well, now I can't take, all of those kinds of
Right.
things. And this is what the play celebrates is yeah, we love extraordinary lives, but most of our life is ordinary. And that's really important to realize how cool ordinary really is. And I think that's part of the power of the play. I really do.
Yeah. Cory, I want to know from you, because you're talking about this crazy perm, which, okay, I kind of remember. Thanks for reminding me. That's kind of fun, but I don't really care about your stupid perm. But clearly you do, right? Like you had a conception of yourself. How did being in the play, I know it's meaningful to you because every so often it's like, hey, Amy, saw the play
Yeah.
thinking of you. It was a moment in time, like a little, it's almost like it's like the time capsule. There's a time capsule in the play. Being in that play is its own kind of time capsule. So what's in that time capsule for you, Cory?
Um, I think for me, it's the language. Carol, you raised an English major through and through. I I left our high school and I went on to St. John's University and I got a degree in English literature and composition and worked in the writing lab. And so for me, it's always all been about the language. Um, and it was, frankly, Amy, one of the reasons that this play is so indelibly embedded in my brain is related to language, and the language that, you were saying, right? You were speaking in that role as the stage manager, because that's some of the meatiest stuff in there. And the stuff that I have carried through and quote to my kids when I'm trying to make a point is particularly the line in Act 3 between Emily and the stage manager. And Carol, it's that same scene when she's saying goodbye. Emily says to the stage manager, does anyone ever realize life while they live it every minute? And the answer is no. No. Saints and poets maybe, but no. And yeah, so for me, I guess it's the language.
So I want to talk about, this is an old play, as you said, about older times. And yet so much of it is relevant right now. I'm thinking about, Emily, she goes to school, falls in love, gets married, has some sort of a life, and then she dies in childbirth at a ridiculously young age. And when we did this play, it was kind of unthinkable that women would be dying in childbirth, or at least that wasn't something that we were really thinking about. I'm sure it happened, whatever, but like, oh my gosh, like right now, that's like very present right now. Childbirth is dangerous to women. So when you think about this play, did you know then, or are you only starting to realize now how relevant and timely or timeless, I don't know, that this play was? When did you first get the sense of that, Carol?
Well, one of the things we used to teach in 11th grade English when we taught Our Town was universal themes. And so I've always felt this play was timeless. And I don't know how much I understood it as a ninth grader. I had a crush on the guy who played George, who was a senior. And, and his later life was not good. He ended up, I think, getting involved in drugs and some things like that. This was the late 60s. What can I say? But that whole universal theme, that whole I know we lost a student once in a car accident right about the time we were doing this play, and people were pulling lines from the play out because of death coming at a time when you're not expecting it, when you're not expecting young people to die of car accidents or childbirth or any of those things like that. And that's why everything in the play is, even the marriage scene between Emily and her dad when she just wants to run off with him.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite
Mine
scenes
too.
in the whole play. And I think about that every time I go to weddings. And actually, when I was watching you guys play it, I thought, and someday you'll get married. I was like,
And our kids will get married.
and they will too. Yes, exactly.
I mean, and Cory and I are now of that age where our kids are launching. Cory still has a kid in high school, but you have a kid off in college. I have kids in college. Like, we are that middle tier now.
Yeah. Well, and generationally now, my kids have been exposed to this. My oldest, when he was in high school at the same school, in the same program, was meant to do a one-act version. So one-act competition, Carol, if you can believe that. So what is that, 31 minutes, something like that?
It's 35, I think.
35. And the estate said no. So they did another Wilder piece that is actually a predecessor to Our Town. And if you listen carefully, you can pick up what he cribbed from himself and went on to write Our Town. But so now both my kids, one who was exposed to it because it was supposed to be a one act and then wasn't, but then one who has gone through the entire production, and then her older brother came in and watched her in it, mopping his eyes the entire time because he too is moved by the language, by the script. So the timelessness that you speak of, Carol, is evident even in my experience. But the big thing is this just has that generational element, and I'm living proof of it because, my folks, my experience, my kids, their kids. And I think that just speaks to exactly what you're talking about. Because when was Our Town written?
It was written in 1938. I checked that out, but it takes place in something like 1904.
Yeah.
But he wrote it in 1938, so almost 100 years ago.
Wow.
I want to actually ask, do you think there are elements that don't hold up? I mean, for me, I was thinking about the fact that they're going off to church choir and that a lot of this generation, like the younger generation, they don't necessarily have religious upbringings or religious communities the same way. But so that to me was like, I wonder how that translates to the younger generation. But I wonder, are there parts of this play that you feel like don't hold up as well? Or do you feel like, no, it pretty much transcends?
he chose a good reason to go way earlier by doing it, and the change from horses to autos and things like that at the turn of the 19th to 20th century. He chose to do that on purpose all those years later, because then I think you could look at that nostalgically,
Right.
and we can still look at those things nostalgically. But I think the overall, I always go back to the times change, people don't.
Mm.
And you look to the overall feelings of the people. Our kids, yes, they have very different lives, but they still are. Times change, people don't. They really don't. So that universality comes out, even though we don't have milkmen coming on anymore. And it was milkmen
Yeah.
with
No milkman.
horses. We don't have any of those things anymore. It's that underlying feeling, the emotions that people go through. I think I'll give you a very quick story. I saw this off Broadway. I discovered it was in 2009. I thought it was way more recently than that. It was on this. It was an amazing production, and I was sitting next to a woman. I mean, this was such a small theater, and all sorts of stars were there. I was sitting right across from John Lithgow, for example. It was a pretty exciting night to be there. Patricia Richardson was there, things like
Oh, I
that.
love her.
And Andy was living in New York at the time. That was why we were there. But I was mentioning to the woman that we taught this, and at the end of the play, that was sitting next to me, she grabs my arm in tears, going, "You just keep teaching this play." But I have to tell you what they did at the end of the play, because if I ever directed it again, I would do it. When she goes back to her
Mhm.
life, instead of having all the how the scenery is not real scenery, they made it super real.
Oh,
So when she
Mm.
went back to her 12th birthday, they had bacon and coffee cooking on stage. And it was super,
Mm.
super real, and it was amazing. And then when they came back to the graveyard, it went back to what it was. And I thought it was amazing. And everybody, if there would have been a bacon cart outside the theater, we all would have bought bacon. We were so hungry for it. But it was a really interesting way of doing that. And it was a very intimate show, because it was a very small theater too. But it
Right.
just seems to transcend no matter where or when. And again, with our kids now, I mean, how does your daughter feel about the play? She's a very 21st century kid, born in the 21st century. How does she feel about the play after having been in it?
if I were to channel my inner 17-year-old girl, she would tell you that it is gutting, and because it is, right?
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
because the themes there, the universality also makes it uh, tug at very universal and well understood heartstrings. The commonality, the growing up, the getting married, the going away, and then dying, and the feelings that all evokes. Um, and I already said, my oldest came back from college to watch his little sister in the show and sobbed through at least Act Three, which made me remarkably proud because that is the appropriate response. Thank you.
Exactly.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, she had the same experience that we all have, up to and including what we talked about before, not getting Emily and being devastated by that,
Mhm.
but then recognizing the beauty and the value in the show itself, so that by the time the run was over, so were all those misgivings about which role and what am I playing and who am I not playing and what didn't I get, and it became all about this show, as it so frequently does.
So I want to just take a step back and talk about, so the moment you mentioned on Broadway, Carol, the reason that's so powerful is that the whole staging of it is just bare bones, right? There is no staging. It's all pantomimed. And then coming back to the moment and seeing it fleshed out like that, like what we were missing, it goes back to the quote that Cory offered up, do any people actually realize in the moment what they are experiencing? And I think, and I'd love you to tell me if I'm wrong, Cory, but I think that in the moment of doing this, and I had you as my English teacher. We had worked through this play before we staged it too. So as I was going through that experience in English class, recognized what a special experience it was in English class. And while I was in the play, really aware in the moment, like, wow, this is an incredible moment. I actually did know in the moment how special it was. And Cory, I just want to know if that resonates with you, that like, no, we knew it.
Yeah, and Carol, I actually think one of the ways we knew it was one of uh, the conceits you drew, and I think you probably repeated when you directed it again, and I saw repeated again here a few weeks ago, is the slideshow,
Oh yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
pre-show slideshow. And I remember you set yours to Bruce Springsteen, um,
Hmm.
I
My
my
hometown.
hometown,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
was, I remember it, and theoretically I shouldn't, because I should have been backstage. I think you showed us the slideshow and played the music backing behind it, so we knew what was going on, because we none of us wanted to miss it. And I think you had featured photographs of us
Right.
as little.
Because I wanted to bring it into Prior Lake at that, I
Yeah.
wanted to bring it into our hometown. That was my goal, yes.
And so
Mhm.
I think we did know it. I think, and I think the reason that line resonates so many years later, after hearing it on stage over and over again, is because there are the moments we knew it. Um, but those, but that's the whole point. They're the moments that we know it. They're the moments that we recognize it. But it's not all the time. If we were smart, it would be. It would be all the
Yeah.
time that you recognize that I am here and I exist and I'm having this conversation and you and I are in this interaction, in person or virtually, but we don't, because we slip into the the mundane and everyday of our eighth birthday, uh, and fail to notice everything going on around us. And I think that's why I hang on to that line, because I think that's the central lesson of that whole play, which is all of this stuff that you pick your head up and you notice and pay attention to in fits and starts and infrequently and in moments is around you all the time. You're just not noticing it every minute.
Yeah.
And when you say that, Cory, I'm brought back. I'm standing behind the curtain. I'm watching the things flash on the screen. I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen, and I'm waiting because I'm about to step on stage and I'm about to speak. And I don't even remember. There was a moment when I used to know all that stuff. I don't remember. I just remember I'm about to step on stage and I'm about to do something really, really special, you know?
Yeah.
But you already admitted you don't remember the more than an hour worth of script. So
Nope.
there's your every minute versus the minute you remember.
I think when I was listening to the stage manager talk in this production, and she was brilliant, it was it was really beautiful because it was like, oh yeah, I didn't have the feeling of, oh my gosh, I missed it. I'm like, oh no, I really did do that right. I really am proud of how I was in it. So I just really want to thank both of you for being here today. This has been delightful. And I want to ask you each one final question. And the question is, what did you wish that we had talked about that we haven't talked about yet?
Okay, I got one. All these years later, Carol, I still don't know why you had to recast George in our production. And I don't know if that's like HIPAA, or if there's a
No,
statute of
it's not HIPAA. Whoever,
limitations, or
whoever, whoever had been playing George was not showing up at rehearsal. And then I can't remember specifically, but I believe then he was going to leave town for quite a while. And it's like, and this is about my second or third show in Prior Lake. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. And so I said, "You're done then," and I know who it was, but I'm not going to mention names. But
Right?
he was gone, and then it was a situation. I know who took his place. Mark took his
yep.
place, and Mark happened to be there, and he read that night and went, "Yeah, you got the part. He was good, and you were mad because I know you wanted that part." But
You keep coming up
And
with the mad thing.
sometimes
yeah,
sometimes
I
the
know
universe conspires to give you the part that you needed. What
that's
is it? The
exactly
Rolling
right.
Stones, right?
That,
Can't always get what you want.
but sometimes you get
You
what you
get.
need.
Yep.
Exactly. So,
And
but that was what happened. If you don't show up, then you don't get to You don't get to do it. And I needed to establish that pretty strongly all the time, not just, but I was still relatively new at the time too. So,
The Rolling Stones thing. Our Carol, you know Troy Tradup. Um,
oh yeah, yeah.
Troy is a mutual friend of ours, and his collection of plays is titled "Protect Me from the Things I Think I Want," and that is absolutely the refrain that I had in mind as I was reading Ann Patchett's Tom Lake, which is of course all about our town. Protect me from the things I think I want.
Yep. Yep, that's good. I'm not sure that there's anything that I think that we didn't talk about. Certainly the things I was thinking about the play. I just think it's. I know they keep talking about how it is done in high schools a lot because it's relatively easy to stage and things like that. But it is just such a deep play. One of my favorite stories is I had a kid the second time I did it choose not to go out to it because he hated it as a junior, and after he saw it, he went, "Oh man, was I wrong?" He wish he had. He realized, oh, there's way more to the play than whatever I learned in my junior English class. And so that was kind of a funny thing. And it's like, yeah, you got to listen to me sometimes, So
Life lessons.
I actually mostly did know what I was doing. So
You very much knew what you were doing, and it is such an honor to not meet up in the graveyard afterwards, but in real life to come on back and see each other face to face and go, wow,
yeah,
it was
great.
That was something.
And as I said, the fact that it's back on Broadway, it's not just a high school play. And yeah, well, I would love to go back to New York and see this production. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to do that or not, but I would love to see what they're doing. But I'm still having trouble with really 90 minutes. I'm not sure. I thought I read that somewhere, so I'll have to check that out. I just know Jim Parsons is playing the stage manager. That much I do know. So
that would be a treat to see.
Thanks for listening to Courageous Wordsmith. Today's episode featured Cory Busse and Carol Ottoson. You can read more about them in the show notes. That's where you'll find my links too. Backstage at Courageous Wordsmith, our production team is the brilliant Brooke Roy and me, Amy Hallberg. You can subscribe to this podcast right on this page. Sign up for my emails and share with friends who want to write. And how about you? You have stories to tell. What if you let yourself tell them? What would that look like for you? I am Amy Hallberg, and until we meet again, travel safely.